Welcome to today's CPG Masterclass series webinar with Andrew Rice on teaching the everyday golfer. First of all, welcome to everybody. Hope you've had a good morning and looking forward to a great webinar today with Andrew. Before we do get started, as always, just make sure your microphones are muted. You can keep your screens on if you want to, so we can see your faces, see who's listening in, which should be good. But just ensure that your microphones are muted, please. We will allocate time afterwards for a Q&A, so if you've got any questions for Andrew that crop up over the webinar, please do post them in the chat option in the bottom of your screens, and I will coordinate a Q&A for about 10-15 minutes after, depending on how many questions we get, but I'll make sure we get through as many as possible. We also are recording this webinar, and we will upload them onto the CPG Masterclass Series Hub page after the webinar is finished. So say, for example, you missed something that Andrew said, or a question or an answer, for example, go onto the Masterclass Series Hub page and the recording will be on there for you to review your notes, etc. My name is Tom Bentley. I am the Communications and Event Manager for the CPG. So once again, welcome everybody. And I will just briefly introduce you to Andrew, who is the Director of Instruction at the club at Savannah Harbor. He's got over 25 years of experience, and he's got a lot of experience at Zoom calls right now, as I'm sure a lot of other people have. So I'm sure he's looking forward to today's. He's in various accolades in terms of top 100, golf.com, top 50 Golf Digest, and I'm really looking forward to hearing what he's got to say about teaching the everyday golfer today. So Andrew, I'll pass straight over to you.
Thank you very much, Tom. Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you're doing okay. We're going to make it. We're going to get out of this thing at some point. Let's do what we can to get better at our craft whilst we lay in wait for golf season. I'm sure the weather's getting better where you are. It's getting better where I am. And just looking forward to getting out there at some point. So thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate your attention. I appreciate your time. What I wanted to do today was share some of my experience as it pertains to teaching the everyday club golfer. And I suspect that most of you are much the same as me in that you teach primarily everyday golfers. I teach some better players, but the majority of my business, most of my information is directed towards just helping the everyday golfer have more fun out on the golf course, hit some better shots. And so I wanted today to share some information that really didn't pertain so much towards the technical side of the game. It's more about executing a world-class lesson. And certainly keep in mind, I've done a lot of lessons. I know there are many of you who've done a lot of lessons. I certainly wouldn't qualify myself as a guru on the topic, but I've found that these elements, the things I'm going to share with you today, really do carry some weight. And I've got 9 topics that I really want to jump through and just talk a little bit about each, and then we'll close up at the end. And certainly I'd be open to answering any questions. But I think when it comes to teaching the everyday golfer, these are 9 simple, important elements that I think if you can keep in mind and you can work your way through these points, you really are going to have a successful lesson. You're going to have a happy customer, and a happy customer is going to go out and tell people how good you are and how much they enjoyed their experience. They're also hopefully going to be hitting better shots. And so we'll touch on that too, but let's get started. Point number 1. We've all had this. Somebody comes to us, and most often it's when we're early in our career. Somebody comes to us and says, I'm really struggling with my driver. And for our time together, we see the problem in their golf swing, and I give them a 7-iron and they just hit 7-irons for the whole lesson. And we say, great, go and work on that. That'll help. Well, ultimately, we need to be problem solvers, and our customers most often are going to come to us with a problem. It's our job to provide them with a solution to their problem. And I really do think that's important. We need to make sure that we don't stick to our agenda. We have a customer, just like Burger King, you can have it your way. We need to be able to make sure that the customer is going to get what they want out of the lesson. I distinctly remember quite a few years ago, I taught a golfer who uh, powerful businessman, and he had the weakest grip I'd ever seen. And I tried a number of times to strengthen his grip. And every time he stopped me and he said, look, we're just not going there. I'm just not changing my grip. And ultimately, I had to work my way around his overly weak grip. He wasn't very good at golf, and he could have been much better if he did change the grip. But ultimately, I had to give the player what they wanted, in that make me better with the grip that I've got. And I something that helped me, if I was teaching a golfer that had one arm, I wouldn't say to that golfer, I'm sorry, I only teach golfers with two arms. I would have had to work my way around it. And sometimes we have people that just want to hit drivers, or they just want to putt, or they just want to do what they want to do. We, the business, the coach, we need to allow them that, whilst doing our best to influence their ability. And so give the customer what they want, help them with the problem that they've come to you looking for a solution. Give them that solution to their problem, not necessarily our problem. Be clear and concise. I find that this is perhaps the most important part of the lesson. When someone steps on my tee, we're going to have a chat. We're going to talk a little bit. I really do find it to be helpful as a coach that while I'm talking to a new student, and we're assuming this is a new student, they're stepping onto my tee for the first time, we've just met, we're not going to shake hands anymore. I've had that experience. It's amazing how often we touch each other during the course of a golf lesson, and that's all going to change. And so that's going to be a new thing we'll have to get used to. But during that interview period, I like to take some head covers off. In particular, I like to look at a player's driver. And you'll get a lot of information about that player just by looking at the wear and tear on their driver, the loft, the club head, the shaft, the grip. It's amazing what you can tell by getting a sense from that golfer. When you listen to them, when they tell you what they're looking for, and then they hit a few shots, and you may or may not be using technology, but if you are using technology, I use that technology to diagnose the problem in the early part of the lesson. And then for the rest of the lesson, I'm using technology to quantify how well my information is doing. And I think that's important. As a coach, I've got to be able to see, is this information working? We can certainly see it in ball flight, but it's nice to be able to quantify it. But it's that early part of the lesson, once I've seen them hit some shots, once we've looked at a few swings, we've seen the ball flight, that I need to make sure that I'm clear and concise. I need to, as the coach, take charge and say, okay, I see what the ball's doing. I see the way you swing, and this is the problem, and this is how we're going to attack the problem. I think it's so important, and we need to establish that objective very early on, and we need to be confident and clear in our communication as to what that objective is. For example, I taught somebody the other day, they had a very closed club face. And so I said, okay, all of your problems stem from that closed club face throughout the golf swing. You're having to push your arms away from your body. You're having to stand up to counter that closed golf swing in an attempt to give it some loft, in an attempt to get the face square, to deter that face from closing further. And this is the drill we're going to work towards. And so the objective will never change, but how we reach that destination might change. And I think we need to, as coaches, also keep an open mind towards, sometimes our suggestions are not going to work. Objective stays the same. How we get there might change, but let's make sure that we're clear. Provide drills and a practice plan. I think this is so important. I'm a big fan of having my students leave with something. I want them to have a drill. I want them to have maybe 2 drills, but they've got to have a practice plan. I've painted, if I've done a good job as a coach, I've said, okay, you started here, we're moving you to here. This is how you're going to make that journey. This is how you're going to transport yourself from the golfer you are today to the golfer you're capable of becoming. And so it's the drills, and the practice plan that's going to move them from point A to point B. And it's so important that we use our creativity, we use our experience. And I know that I can look at somebody's swing, see what the problem is, and step in and go, okay, Bob, for example, okay, Bob, this is what you need, and here's a drill that I want you to work towards. My hope is that the drill is going to help the player do a better job with what the problem is. If that drill works, then that's the drill we're going to go for. Once again, I'm going to kick on my technology and I'm going to get that feedback from the player to look at, are the numbers changing? Is the ball flight changing? Is the carry increasing? Are these things happening in a positive light so that the player is going to start to go, okay, this is what I came for. This is what I'm looking for. I think whether we've all got golfers that aren't big drill workers on the range, but I think first time up, we've got to give them something to take with them so that when they're practicing on their own, when they're working towards that final objective, they've got some homework, they've got some work to do. Manage expectations. This is a biggie, and I think it's helpful early on in the lesson to mention and paint the picture. This is how it's going to go. Today is day one of working towards this objective. Tomorrow is simply day two. It's not as if I was a magician, the line for lessons would be out the door. Okay, I'm not a magician, but I am going to give you something to work towards that will make you better. And I love, students often will say, does this lesson come with a guarantee? I think that's a fun one, simply because I say, yes, it does. If you do exactly what I tell you to do, you will get to where I've painted the picture. You will reach that destination, that objective. And it really is, it amazes me how often I teach a lot of 3-day golf schools, and how often golfers will come to a 3-day golf school and be under the false impression, the mistaken impression, that by the time we get to day 3, they're going to be amazing as a golfer. And day 3 is simply day 3. Day 4 is day 4. Anything that's worth doing takes time to do. Nobody ever gets really good really fast in golf. I'm yet to see it. Some people have tried to tell me, oh, well, Greg Norman went from a 12 handicap to a scratch handicap in his first year of playing golf. A scratch handicap is good. That's nice if you're Greg Norman, but going from a 12 to a scratch to me isn't a massive change. Nobody has much more than a 12-stroke change during the course of any year. And so for someone to think they're going to be really good, they're going to be frustrated, because when a person has expectations that are unmet, they get frustrated. And so the better job we can do in the early part of painting the picture as to what's going to happen, what the expectations are, that's really how we're going to start to keep the player on our team, on our side. Be creative and not afraid to explore. And by the way, you see these photographs. These are photographs that I've taken over the years, playing golf courses all over the world, thankfully. And so I know Tom had a go at guessing all the golf courses, and he did pretty well. If anyone can recognize these courses, make a little note, because there are some tough ones on there, but this one is one that you should recognize. Be creative and not afraid to explore. I would say this, when it comes to this one, let's keep that objective the same. Never change the objective. Never change the objective. And that's why you should really take your time before deciding on what the objective is. Most often the student's going to tell you, hey, look, I'm looking to hit draws. You can be creative as to how you get the player to do that, but you still want to make sure you're going to get that player hitting draws. I love it, and I'm sure many of you have had this experience when a student walks onto my lesson tee and says, Andrew, I've never hit a draw in my life. I go, well, get ready. Today you're going to hit one, simply because I'm confident in the fact that I can change certain elements in this golfer's swing, having even never seen them swing, to get them to hit a shot that curves to a draw pattern. we can do that. Be creative and don't be afraid to try different things. If you see that your first drill, if your first avenue to help you reach that destination is not working out, don't be afraid to change it up. Okay, don't be afraid to change it up. Explain to the student, look, I'm a problem solver. I'm not going to be 100% correct every time. All people, all students are different. I thought you would work this way. That's not happening. Let's try this different avenue to get there. So don't be afraid to do that. I really think that it shows security. It shows confidence in who you are as a coach to change your plan as to how to reach that objective. That's an important one there. Every single person is different. I told the story of the golfer who didn't want to change their grip. That is so, so true. And one of the things I think that's come to light over the last 10 or 15 years in golf coaching is we need to treat each person uniquely. It used to be, and I know about 10 years ago, there were all these different swing methods. You could swing a certain way. Well, just look at the best players in the world. Look at the best players of all time. None of them have golf swings that look the same. They might look similar at certain parts in the golf swing, but their swings are different. If we look at Rory McIlroy and DJ and Jordan Spieth and Jason Day, very different looks, very different looks. We would all like ourselves to look like Adam Scott and our students to look like Adam Scott. That's not going to happen. All we need is we need them to deliver that club properly. I'm a big fan. I'm going to say this. When it comes to the golf swing, the technical side of the swing, and we'll touch on this in a minute, I'm a big fan of improving downswings. I really, as long as the backswing and the fundamentals support the player getting the club in an appropriate position on the way down, I'm not sold on getting everybody's swing to look the same. And I think we need to break away from that idea. If you're still teaching that, please stop. Let's treat people as individuals with the understanding that that downswing needs to work a certain way. And if someone's got a really busy career, they don't have much time to practice, we need to tailor our information to fit their schedule. They play golf 6 times a year. They warm up for 10 minutes if they're lucky before going out to play. We need to tailor our information to fit that individual. We've got someone who practices every day. They play 4 rounds a week. Tailor your information to fit that individual. A beginner, the way we communicate needs to connect with those people. And that's really the message here is let's morph our information, our communication to fit the student, that unique person in front of us, whether it be our swing information or the way we're sharing our information, our communication. I think that's an important one. Sharing information. Yes, this is a biggie. And something I remember back in the day, this is beyond communication during the course of the lesson. How do I give the information that we've created during the course of the lesson? How do I give that to the student so that they can take it and refer back to it down the road? I remember back in the day, I would give students at the end of each lesson a VHS tape, and it was a pain in the rear. I'm sure some of you are too young to even remember VHS tapes, but it was not fun. And then we went to DVDs, and then we went to CDs, and now it's so much easier now. I use a coaching app called Coach Now. There are lots of different things out there that you can use, but we've got to have the ability during the course of our lesson to record information. I'm going to go out and I'm going to coach some lessons this afternoon. I will have a microphone on. I will have my iPhone on a tripod recording a lot of the information that I'm going to be sharing with my students, and they have the ability to refer back to it down the road. At the end of every lesson, I take 2 minutes and I stand there in front of the camera and I go, okay, Bob, we've got to work on that closed club face. This is the drill I want you to practice. I'd love to see you do this 30 times, 3 times a week. That's your practice plan. You're going to use an 8-iron. I want the ball on a tee. You're going to work towards that. Let's do a little bit of skill practice. Let's do a little bit of hitting shots and looking for some results. I need 3 practice sessions a week. They can leave, you hit stop, bang, they've got it. They've got something to take with them. It really is important that they can refer back to it. If you don't have an app that you use to share your information, have the student pull their phone out, make sure they hit record, because sometimes they'll just take a photo of you. Make sure they hit record, and you stand in front of them. They point their camera at you, and you stand there for 1 minute and say, okay, this is the information I want you to remember. This is how I want you to work on it. I think it's so important. We've got cool technology to help us get that done. We need to take advantage of that. Personality matters in a big way, in a big way. If people come and spend time with you, they would like it to be an enjoyable experience. And there are people online, you most probably have encountered them just the same way I've encountered them. There are people online who are not pleasant individuals. I do my best to stay away from them. Most often I'll block them. But the same applies to your students. You're not going to block a student, but they might block you because they don't like you. They don't like interacting with you. And I find if you can smile, if you can ask a few questions, if you can check in with their status as a human being and say, how you doing? How's things going? How's the game? Be friendly, be nice. Personality matters, and I'm sure you've seen it in your career. The people who can make friends with everybody, they seem to go the furthest. And so do what you can to be personable, to make sure that people have a fun experience when they come hang out with you on your lesson tee. Oftentimes, I find there's a number of people that I teach who just want to come hang out. Yeah, they want to talk golf, but that's not the main reason they're there. They're there because they want to just interact. They want to have some banter. They want to talk their favorite sport and just connect with somebody, especially in these times. I think personality is going to make a big difference to your client base. Follow up. How do we do that? I know I can do a better job, certainly, when it comes to connecting with my students once they've left. I try to, at a minimum of 2 weeks out, I try to shoot via my Coach Now training space. I try to shoot everybody a note and say, hey, just checking in. How's it going? Haven't heard from you. You haven't asked any questions. If you would like to post a swing, if you would like to ask a question, do so in the training space or shoot me a text. Just let me know how it's going. Here's what it does. It lets the person know that there's somebody thinking about them. There's somebody that cares about them. And ultimately, we're all human beings, and we all like to know that people care and people are thinking about us. And so I think the follow-up is something that most of us, I know I don't, do a good enough job with, and we need to do a better job. This is information, ladies and gents, I believe that really has the ability to turn your coaching business around. And I was talking with Tom before we started, and I saw that Emma Ballard was on a couple of days ago talking about social media and how to make the most out of social media. I asked this question on Twitter quite a few years ago where I said, as a coach, would you rather, one, have the deepest swing knowledge of anybody, have the greatest personality of anybody, teach at the best facility on the planet, or have the biggest audience out of anybody? And I believe 15% of people who responded to the poll said they would take the biggest audience. Here's the deal. You can have the best personality, work at the best club, and know the most. But if you have no customers, you have no business. What you have is worthless. And so as a follow-up and just connecting with our students, we need to understand that we are in business and we need to grow our business. We need to grow our audience, because that's the only way, certainly during times like this, we're going to be able to sustain ourselves. And we ultimately are business people, and we need to, as golf professionals, we need to start thinking accordingly. So a couple of notes here, a couple of notes. There are so many different ways that coaches can help students. And I find that as a coach, too often we jump into the technique bucket. I will say this, the technical bucket, in my estimation, is the most important bucket, in that it's going to change. It can change like this. It can change the way somebody's hitting the golf ball instantaneously. And so we need to be good at the downswing. We need to be good at getting people to hit fades or hit draws and higher or lower. If we can do that in the technical bucket, we are going to be very, very successful. Improve downswings so that we can get students to hit it lower, higher, fade it, or draw it. They don't have to do all of those. They just have to improve one of those four elements. If they can do that, we're in business. Do we have information to help students improve the way they practice? I'm a big fan of a very simple idea I came up with a few years ago. Swing, skill, shot. I want all of my students, when they go to the practice tee, they're going to spend some time working on their swing. That's the technical side. They're going to spend some time working on skill development. That's, can I curve the ball? Can I hit it longer? Can I hit it off the toe? Can I hit it one-handed? Can I hit it lots of different ways? I think of Phil Mickelson or Sergio Garcia as highly skilled golfers. And then at the end of their session, I want them to hit some shots. I want them to hit it to the left of that blue flag down there and to the right of that bunker down there. When they're practicing, that way they're preparing to play better golf, which is the whole purpose of practice. Speed. We know that speed matters. Have some tools, some ideas to help your students get faster. Skill development, I've touched on that already. Equipment. Golf coaches, we need to know more about equipment simply because our students oftentimes are more likely to come to you, their coach, for advice pertaining to equipment than they are to go and get a fitting. I'm a big believer in fittings. You should be as well, but let's do a better job in knowing more about equipment. Look through your player's bag and go, well, I see you've got a 56-degree and a 58-degree wedge. That's not going to work. We can help people there. Gapping, that's important too. Numbers and statistics, I'm going to lump kind of into the same bucket here. There's low-hanging fruit that we can help golfers with. Do they know, very simply, do they know their carry distances? Ask your students how far they hit an 8-iron. I'm going to promise you right now, 80+% of them are going to say a number that is a total number. Ask any tour golfer. They're all working off of carry numbers. Why? Because we need to know where the ball lands, not where it stops. If we land it in a bunker, it's not going to do us any good. And so carry numbers, basic statistics, average putters on the tour are going to convert 50% of their 8-footers. The average proximity for someone who shoots 80 from 150 yards in the middle of the fairway is 42 feet. If you're looking for more information there, please read Every Shot Counts by Dr. Mark Brody. I think it's the most important golf book ever written. Pure facts, no opinions. The mental side. Here's mental, physical, nutritional. I'm not good at those as a coach. I am not good at those, and I don't present myself to be good at that. And so I will refer all of my students who want to be serious, they want to get competitive, I will refer them to someone who can help them mentally, someone who can help them physically, someone who can help them on the nutrition, hydration side. And I'm not afraid to send my students to go and see other experts because I need to be vulnerable. I need to say, hey, listen, I'm not as good as I would like to be. I'm certainly not as good as this person. And so I want you to go and see them. You'll get some great information and ultimately be more competitive and play better golf. My experience as a coach, here's the deal. I've loved it during this lockdown simply because I've seen a new mindset in the golf community, and that is it actually kicked off earlier today. I'm sure many of you participated and saw what happened today, the world's biggest golf lesson. Golf coaches giving away free stuff to help others, and let's do that, whether it's at our club, whether it's with your students, whether it's within your PGA country or PGA section. Do what you can to give back for free, help each other out. There are plenty of golfers to go around for all of us to get our share. Become better at something new. I love photography. That's why you see these golf course photos. I love photography. It's something I've been working on for quite a few years. I would say I'm not new at it anymore. I feel like I'm getting better, but I'm always learning things. I'm always watching videos. I took a photography lesson during Corona shut down. And it was great. I've got one more to go. Really enjoy it. It's something that puts me on the student side of things. And that's a good place for us to be. Put yourself in your student shoes. Bad news, you will be fired. If you haven't been fired already, you will be fired. Let's just be mentally prepared. It's a horrible thing. It's not a pleasant thing, but I've been fired and it wasn't fun. But when I came out of the valley, I went, wow, I'm thankful I was fired because I'm in a much better place. And so if you can just understand that and know, hey, it's going to take some time, you'll get there, you'll get a new job, you'll get an even better place to work. Put the effort in now, and chances are you might not be fired, but if you are, you'll be prepared to deal with that and you'll find a better place down the road. We are 100% in the people business. And whilst I've done a lot of these webinars, I don't like it because I can't interact with people, and I love to interact with people. It's almost like it's me sitting here talking to everybody, but I can't see myself and I'm just talking. I like to interact. I think that's important for us. Do your best for your students. Do your best at everything every day. Do what you can to help in the best way you know how. And let people know that. Say, hey, I'm trying my best here. I didn't get it right that last time, but I've got some ideas. Let's check it out. Come back. We'll try it again. And don't be normal. When I say don't be normal, I mean, don't be weird, but separate yourself. Do something different to what all your peers are doing. We've all seen that video of the golf pro standing there in the garden or on the golf course saying, today we are talking about the grip. And they put their hands on the club, and it's all very boring and very normal. Do what you can to be different. I'm sure many of you know Gigi, George Gankas. Gigi is not normal, and that's why he's so successful. He's got great information. You need great information, but he doesn't present himself in this normal package. So do things differently. Separate yourself from the crowd. Give back. Give 100%, and ultimately have some fun with it. We get one go at life. Let's make the most of it. Let's do the best we can. And thank you so much for tuning in. I would love it if some of you have some questions for me, please. Tom, we got any questions? Tom, I can't hear you.
There we go. Can you hear me now?
There we go. I got
Excellent.
you now.
I'm muting myself. Thank you, Andrew, for that. It was very entertaining, especially at the end. Hope you all enjoyed that. Yeah, as Andrew just said, if you've got any questions for him, do post them in the chat now. I'll spend a bit of time to go through them. There is a couple. If I could just start quickly on the last slide and make a sort of comment, with the give back point. I think that's important. I don't know if anyone who's been on the call now has maybe just got off from doing the world's biggest golf lesson. I know you have, Andrew. And just bear in mind, or keep that thought after you leave, that think about how many people who are on your Instagram that maybe you've never had a golf lesson with, who's probably viewed your channel. Now, they may not come back and give you a ring, but you're in their minds. I just think that's an important thing to bear in mind. So whilst it's obviously all for a fantastic cause, and it's something which is why we've supported it, there's also some potential indirect benefits from generating lessons by doing things like that. So always think about it. Quick question from me, Andrew,
Yes,
you spoke a lot about tailoring your coaching, your technical coaching, your communication, everything to the individual, which is absolutely, I completely 100% agree. What if you had, say, a conflict where maybe you have a student who is a very good player, very technically focused in their own minds and wants their swing to be a certain way, but maybe you don't agree with that? How do you go about dealing with that conflict?
Tom, that sounds like somebody who's chasing a look. And to me, it's very easy to sift those people out because they like to hang out on Instagram most often because they're chasing a certain look. And I would say to them, well, what's more important for you? The way the ball flies and the destination that it reaches, or how it looks? Because I can show you 1,000 golf swings, Matthew Wolff versus John Rahm. They both get the ball down the fairway a long way, but they do it very, very differently. And which of those two players is correct? This player is most likely going to say neither of them, because neither of those swings look the way the Instagram swing should look. But it's got to be, what do you want, form or function? Ultimately, it's about function. And if someone wants to play competitive golf, but they're all about form, and I get it that form ties into function to a certain degree, but there's lots of ways to get function. And if you're stuck into this one narrow little window of my swing must look a certain way, I think you're missing the ball. I would say to that student, you're missing the point. The point is to low numbers, get that ball in the hole, not make the swing look a certain way.
I think Sevi would have something to probably say about that as well, Andrew.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Question from Paul. You went, I think it was one of the earlier points about delivering information to them. Do you ever give them a written plan? And is there anything?
I don't, Paul. And thanks for the question. That's a good one. If you do, that's cool. I just think it's so important that students leave with something. And I've got Coach Now. I'll pull it up on my phone here. I use Coach Now, and I've got close to 1,000 students in there. But here, hopefully you can see all of my students, and they've all got multiple video clips in there. I've got literally hundreds of people in there, and it's how I share my information. And so if someone, here's the deal, if I write something down, that piece of paper, we know what happens to that piece of paper. It goes in their pocket and they wash it. It goes in their pocket and it gets washed. And so if you've got something, put something on their phone. We've got these things with us at all times. And even if it's a little recording in their phone, they've got it. They're not going to delete it. But give them something that they're not going to lose. If you want to write something down, by all means, go for it. Put it on their phone, take a photo, put it on their phone, and give them a piece of paper. That's fine.
Okay. Thank you for that. I hope that answered your question, Paul. One from Hugo. Andrew, any advice for junior golf teachers? I guess that's just a very generic, broad question.
Hugo, I think it's important as you develop your audience to understand how that's going to happen. It depends certainly what age group you're looking at. If you're looking at the 12 to 18-year-old age group, then you need to be on Instagram, you need to be on Snapchat, and you need to be interacting and presenting your information accordingly. If you're looking at golfers younger than 12, then you need to present to the parents. Then you need to share and create information that's going to go to the parents. You want to incorporate juniors into your media, your marketing, but make sure that you understand who you're after. You certainly understand who you're after, but go about it the right way. I find that social media is quite divided. Facebook is typically for old guys. Instagram is for younger people, college age, typically, and I'm generalizing here. Twitter is more business professionals. Email is for everybody. I find email works best. And if you can build your database, keep a nice clean list of people who want to hear from you and shoot them out a monthly newsletter. I sent mine out yesterday. Shoot out a monthly newsletter. That's a great way to get the message across, because people are going to sit down, they're going to open up your email and look into all the little boxes you've created.
I would second that last point. We had mentioned it in a previous marketing webinar about the different channels and email. Think about it. I think about it in that for example, my grandma, no social media, no clue on technology, but she has an email and she knows how to use that email. Everybody I can think of uses email. It's probably your most valuable channels for advertising lessons on.
Yes. Keep in mind, a very small percentage of the golf population hangs out on Instagram. It might seem like it's big, and there are a lot of people there, but what percentage of the golf population is that? Everybody has email. Everybody has email. A skinny percentage of those golfers have Instagram.
Yep. Dino Ferrer, could you just sort of explain your question a little bit better? It doesn't quite make sense, and I'll come back to you. There's a question from Amir. Thank you. How do you deal with the students when they get angry during the lesson? You ever had that?
Amir, I would paint the picture. If someone's getting angry, they have expectations that are not realistic. If someone's getting angry, I would say, listen, here's the deal. I'm going to paint the picture for you as to how this is going to work. It's going to take time. You're not going to get it correct straight away, but you need to get that. And I remember back in the day, I had a couple of guys who would throw clubs and slam clubs and shout and scream and go crazy during the course of a lesson. And it takes a while to get up the courage to say, hey, listen, if that happens again, you're not coming back, because nobody likes to deal with people like that. Paint the picture for them and say, this is what's going to take place. It's going to take time. It's going to take work. We're not going to get it today. But if you get angry again on my lesson T, then I'm afraid you're going to have to go and find somebody else to teach you.
Okay.
My 2 cents.
I hope that answered your question, Amir. And then one more from Shane. Hi, Andrew. I am a pro working in a golf club who would like to go full-time coach. Obviously, there's a bit of apprehension about your revenue and your earning income. Any advice for a tip for a pro going solo?
Shane, it sounds like you've got the qualifications, you've got the motivation. You need a place to teach first. You need a place to teach. And so I would, if I were you, start to work towards finding a place where you can teach a lot of golf lessons for not very much money. It's almost like you're going to do your teaching apprenticeship out there in the field. You're going to be given a ton of lessons. I would encourage you to follow along with the people on social media that you really look up to, that you really respect as teachers. But you got to take the plunge. You got to take the plunge. Make sure you've got a place where you can learn to teach golf. And that means teaching a lot of golf lessons for not a lot of money. I would teach 30-minute lessons, and I would try to try to book yourself up all day. Don't charge a lot. That way you will have a lot of students. You will have a lot of practice when it comes to teaching golf, but make sure you've got a location where you can do that first, and then go all in.
Okay, I think I'd just like to add to that a bit, Andrew, as well, because I've always given this a bit of thought. After I finished my PGA qualification, I didn't end up taking that route of coaching, but I've always thought, what would I do if I wanted to start an academy up? And I think junior coaching and group coaching is probably a good way to generate income fast, because you've got 10 plus people paying, all right, a smaller amount of money, but it might be substantially more than private lesson coaching. So I think I'd always look at maybe doing grassroots golf, junior coaching, go to schools, that sort of stuff, and try and build up a bit of a client base through that as well. I don't know. Would you agree?
Great idea. Great idea. Yeah.
Because then also you never know. Parents take kids to the lesson. The parent wants a lesson. Boom, you're sort of rolling from there, aren't you? A little bit then.
Yeah.
Okay, great question there, Shane. See what else we've got. I think that looks like it. Oh no, one from Stephen Bergner. Hi Andrew, how often do your students check their coach now?
Stephen, not often enough. Not often enough. Here's the deal. I've got, and it ties into that one slide. Everybody is different. Everybody is unique. I have people that if I responded to everything they posted in there, they would be on there every day, all day. And I have people who have never put the app on their phone. I think there's a lot more people that have never put the app on their phone than people who use it every day. It's a skinny percentage, but here's what it's doing. For those that do use it, it's a way for us to stay connected. And so if I want to, for example, if I wanted to record an instructional video, I could send it out to all of my students at the same time. Right then and there, they could all have access to it. They wouldn't all necessarily see it, but I could send it out to all of them at the same time. Another cool thing about that Coach Now app is you send someone their swing or a lesson. They can show their buddy and go, hey, check this out. Look at what this guy did. I've got all these videos. I've got all these swings. And that's what they did for me. And it's a cool little marketing thing where, because golfers are hanging out with their buddies for 4 hours, they talk about golf and they talk about the lessons they take. And so if you've got something in their phone that they can show their buddies and they start playing great golf, look out.
Okay, thank you. I think we've got time for one more question. A good one from Mike. I guess this probably applies to a lot of coaches. How do you get on with players that simply refuse to ask what you do? So if you give them something, you work with them a lot, but they still keep coming back for lessons ultimately.
Yes, the repeat lesson. Mike, I would say this, do what you can to encourage people. And my wife and I have a saying, you can take the horse to the well, but you cannot force the horse to drink. And so you're going to take the horse to the well 5, 10, 15 different ways, but you're always going to the same well. And ultimately, you need to stick on them because you are the coach and you are the boss. They have the final say. But you, as the coach, you've got the ability to present your information lots of different ways. The objective stays the same. Try something different each time they come. Try something different. They need to ultimately practice. They need to put the information you've shared with them to work so that they can start to reap the rewards and start to play better golf.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, that wraps up today's webinar. First of all, thank you, Andrew. Thank you to everybody for attending. Just before you leave, just want to run through the webinars that are coming up. We've got a few. We've got one on Thursday, which is with myself and my CPG colleagues focusing on life after COVID-19. They're going to give you some practical local rules, things you can do on the course to prepare for, if you haven't already, golf's return. On Friday, the Golf in Buddha with David Kearney, which will be a very interesting and slightly different tangent to what we've taken so far with these webinars. And then next week, there's a few more, such as Ian Peake's Part 2, Russell Warner's Personal Development, Todd Kierstad's Adaptive Golf, and I've just announced a new one on golf tourism with a colleague from New Zealand who'll should be interesting, and then Alistair Spink on female golfers as well. So there's plenty on there for everybody to cater for different tastes. Lastly, I just want to reiterate my thanks to you all for attending. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you're enjoying the series. I certainly am. And finally, thank you to you, Andrew, as well. I know you've been very busy with Zoom calls, as we all are at the minute, so I really appreciate your time to talk to the guys today.
Thanks, everybody. Appreciate you tuning in. Stay safe. Come on, let's get this thing going. Let's get back out there and start living life. Take care.